Hello and welcome to the Many Faces of Science podcast, where we discuss the different jobs that use science, the people who have them, and how they got there. We hope these episodes act as a guide for people wanting to explore more than just academia and a gateway to the curious-minded. I'm your host Caelum, and today we're going to be chatting with award-winning marine biologist, science communicator, and science illustrator, Dr. Elizabeth Mills. If you enjoyed the episode and or found it useful, you can let us know on our social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. Here we go. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Mills. How are you doing today?
I'm all good. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm so excited to be here.
We're very, very excited to have you too. The first question that I've got for you today is, what is your official job title?
So my official job title is a freelance science communicator and marine biologist. Although because I work for myself, I suppose I've kind of given myself that title. But I'm quite liking that I get to give myself my job role.
It's a very, very good title. And now, talking about job roles, what are your current job roles? Maybe your kind of main three at the moment.
Yeah, it's hard to narrow down because as a science communicator, you're doing loads of different stuff. But I do all my science communication through the name Marine Mumbles. And so for years, I've had a website and a YouTube channel where I talk about marine science communication. I share about the wonders of our ocean, what you can find for just a pair of wellies. So that includes like videos and photos and me dancing about on the shore. So that's kind of one main section which I absolutely love to do. But part of this science communication kind of business, I also do training. So I kind of share what I do and hopefully teach those skills to other people so that everybody else can jump on board and do exciting things like teaching people how to film videos or how to have fun when they're doing public speaking, not just be confident, but, enjoy it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the kind of third and final thing that I do is kind of talks and science shows for kids and making scientific art, like that kind of that's kind of very broad together, but it's all about kind of talking and creative ways to share about science. So a lot of stuff under those umbrellas that I've tried to sneak into just 3 current job roles.
A lot in those just 3 job roles, but it seems like a lot of very, very interesting aspects to do. You've got a lot of freedom within that, as shown talking about that. So kind of linking with that, did you always want to have this job or did you want to do something else when you were younger?
So I always knew I wanted to be a marine biologist. That was set in stone. I have a picture on my website of me as a kid in wellies, probably about 2 or 3, holding a crab. Like it's exactly the same picture I take every weekend when I'm down the beach anyway. Even down to the fact that when I was maybe 8 or 9, I like when you're leaving school, they like sign your shirt and my teacher signed it with a dolphin. And I was like, because they knew I wanted to be a marine biologist. And I remember telling the teacher, like, marine biology is not all just dolphins. At like 8, like I can't remember when I wanted to be a marine biologist. I can't remember making that decision. I've just been stubborn about that being what I wanted to be since I was a kid. What I didn't see was maybe how much I would class as marine biology where I wouldn't before. And I'll get into that a bit more when I was talking about my career, but I've gone into like engineering and now science communication. And as a kid, I spent all my time, I love watching stuff like Steve Irwin and watching all these amazing nature documentaries. And now as an adult, I've got to go back on and watch and be on like things like CBeebies and stuff like that. But I don't think I clocked at the time that was like marine biology. But actually, as a kid, like maybe now I'm doing exactly what I thought I would want to do. So yes, I'm very pleased I've gone in this direction.
That's really, really cool. You wanted something and you've managed to get there, which is, I think, really, really beautiful to see. So has there been a person or a moment which changed your career? It could be kind of from when you were younger, like watching Steve Irwin on TV, or it could be someone more in your personal life. If you could tell us about that.
Yeah, I think I was very lucky in that where I grew up was right near a beach, and me and my dad and my family would go fishing all the time. I would spend my childhood on a beach. I'd be that kid that was like catching fish and like wanting to know everything and like looking in their mouths and their gills and putting them back and stuff like that. But I was so fascinated by getting to spend so much time and exploring. So I think my family has been kind of a big role in just wanting to go down that route and being very supportive. But kind of along the way, there's been some kind of great people. When it comes to like science communication, I mean, I wanted to go into that realm, but there's a big leap leaving kind of academia to go and do science communication.
Definitely.
And so having a support network has made this kind of transition so much easier. So people like Sam Langford, who's an amazing science communicator here in Scotland, has been so unbelievably supportive. And people like Sarah Cosgrave and Hannah Ayoub and Dagmar, and amazing science communicators, just all of those people that have gone out of their way to be supportive and helpful has kind of really just made this really nice. And I'm very excited to kind of be in this realm, and my thanks will kind of go out to all of them. And I kind of hope that, you know, in a couple of years time I'll be in that position to do the same with other people. I won't be the newbie science communicator on the block and I'll be able to help others too. So I really appreciate all of them.
Definitely. So kind of having your family being very, very supportive with obviously taking you to the beach and then inspiring you with that, and then having the science communication network that you've got helping get you into and supporting you with this as well, because you're kind of in a transitional period, aren't you, right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, so this when we're recording this is my kind of first full week doing this as a freelancer. And it's just kind of nice because it's not something going through that kind of academic career path that I've kind of gone through. It's something I fell into doing the science communication, and seeing that these incredibly amazing science communicators that have been so successful and make such a difference and helping share that science, which is what I want to do. I get so excited when I get to share what I learn and love. And I've seen others do that kind of having those people there as role models, but also as friends that can kind of show you this is a space that you can go into, and here's kind of some tips and tricks has been really nice. I kind of always knew that the marine biology was there, but having others kind of show you that the science communication is also a thing there has just been a really wonderful experience.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you. We've talked about how science communicators such as Sam Langford, Hannah Ayoub, Sarah Cosgrave and Dagmar have helped support you into becoming a freelance science communicator, which you are now full-time. But how did you actually get
so I've
to
had,
your current role?
I kind of dipped into lots of different disciplines, gone down this career path, which I've been really excited to be kind of involved in lots of stuff. So I started off doing marine biology at undergrad. No surprise there, wanted to be a marine biologist, and I went to Swansea University and absolutely loved it. It's right by the coast, absolutely full of rock pools, and that kind of led to a lot of my science communication, which is rock pooling. And during my undergrad, I just loved it so much that I wanted to continue to share and wanted a bit of a way to chill out at the same time, and started Marine Mumbles as a website where I painted sea life and wrote a blog about it. I wanted the painting was the chilling out in my last year of uni, but the writing about it was me wanting to share. And so that kind of went on in the background as I moved through the rest of my kind of academic career. My next kind of thing that I managed to do was I went and did a master's in materials engineering, which is not a usual career path. So back on the beach where I spent so much time as a kid, there were these sunken shipwrecks from the World Wars, because they were sunk across the Thames estuary to stop submarines and stuff sneaking up. And the rest of it is all just like clay and mud and a few couple of rocks. And I was really interested about why there was so much stuff living on these sunken shipwrecks and not living on the rocks. And so my undergrad dissertation was looking at this, and that kind of got me into this weird world where biofouling, so that's all the creatures that live on man-made materials we put in the sea, or human-made materials we put in the sea, instead of natural ones. And actually, depending on what creatures it is, it differs, and some creatures have preferences. And I was like, they have preferences? These tiny little tiny creatures of larvae that you can barely see with your naked eye, know where they want to set up home. And I read all these papers, and the engineers were like, oh, we've put this in the sea, this material, but there's this weird stuff growing on it. We've just scraped it off. Or there's mention of sea life, but there's no, the big ecology stuff that I learned and how you sample, none of that was kind of going on. I mean, I'm making a generalization, but for the roughness of it. And then from the biology point of view, the biologists were doing these amazing studies of what grew on man-made surfaces, but like it was iron or concrete. And actually reading the engineering, and I didn't know this before, but reading the engineering side of things, there's lots of different types of metals and there's lots of different types of concrete, and that can have an influence. So I went and did a master's in materials engineering, studying what grew on different materials in the sea, because I was annoyed, if I'm honest, that people weren't learning both. I was like, this is fascinating to me, that the creatures I grew up loving rock pooling can also live on the things we put in the sea, and we can influence that. But they're not being as much, like there's not being that expertise in both. So I jumped into engineering, which was a bit of a leap. And then my degree is in civil engineering, but it was on it was on making different types of concrete to kind of influence what grew on it in harbours, and trying to stop or reduce kind of invasive species that lived on there. So during that time in engineering, though, as well, I found that not a lot of people didn't know what barnacles were. I mean, I didn't know what different types of steel were. They didn't know what barnacles were. It was a real like science communication I was doing every single day just to get my project idea across. So I ended up wanting to then do more science communication because I needed an outlet. The people I worked with they would listen, but they didn't really that interested in that. I needed to share this marineness with the world. So I went on and started a YouTube channel with Marine Mumbles. I signed up to as many public speaking stuff as I could to talk about my science. I just wanted to talk about what I was doing. I was really excited about it, and I wanted to share marine stuff. And that kind of grew, having that time during my PhD, like, you know, after the PhD hours of making all these YouTube videos, put me in contact with some really cool people. And that's where I first met Sam. Actually, it was doing a science like stall based while I was doing my PhD at Glasgow Science Centre. So it kind of just started to introduce me to these kind of networks of people. So when I finished this is a very long story. We're almost there. When I finished my PhD, when I finished my PhD, or just writing up, I started a job working for the Marine Alliance of Science and Technology for Scotland, which is this big organisation of that represent I think about 17 institutes in Scotland. And another program called the Sustainable Management of Marine Resources, which is a more UK-wide program. They're all run out of the same place, and this group called People, Ocean, Planet. And that was a job that I kind of got into because of my interdisciplinariness. I liked connecting people across disciplines. Part of that role was to learn about all the amazing marine science going on in the UK and kind of connect people up across the disciplines, across all these different pools of amazing knowledge. And I had experience in that. And then getting to do ocean literacy stuff with People, Ocean, Planet, working with artists and scientists to do evaluation about how we can make positive change for our ocean. So it really was an amazing kind of job to get landing straight out of the PhD that combined all of my different like interests. And it wasn't specifically research, but it was supportive of research roles. And it was just a really amazing time to meet so many people. But it was time, I think, after doing science communication on the side for so many years and kind of ramping it up a bit with the job, I just decided that this was the time that I wanted to go and kind of create the stories that I wanted to share and have fun with that. During this kind of time as well, I was getting more roles, do like amazing cool like filmy kind of stuff. I did the CBeebies stuff, and I did amazing nudibranch film for the National Film and Television School as a presenter. And so I just got very excited by that, and now I'm hoping to kind of carry that on with this. So that's kind of how I got here. A bit of a winding road, but I've enjoyed getting to learn so many different pockets of information and share that.
Thank you for sharing. That's a really interesting road that you've gone down. For the listeners who don't know, me and Elizabeth know each other in kind of personal life, as we kind of do a D&D together, which is kind of quite fun.
Absolutely, but loving every second of it.
But I've actually never heard her journey before. But it's really, really interesting actually hearing about how you've arrived here, because it's as much news to me, and I'm interested in it as much as I hope our listeners are as well. Now, I've got a question which I'm very much interested in, as I hope our audiences will be. What is something about your role / job that you find really cool that you don't think the audience or public will know about? Obviously, we touched upon there being the different types of cement and like different animals touching to it, which isn't something that I thought about. But kind of in the same idea, is there anything that you think they might find really cool that they might have no idea about necessarily?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, trying to think. So a job role that I think would people might not know about is like how much I think people are very important in science. I found that, you know, things like networking and having your own creative ideas to come up and do new science is incredibly important. So I often find that when people are talking about science, they're surprised at how kind of creative it is and how much I push that really science is always looking for new ideas, new people, new ways to think creatively. And that's how science moves forward. We use those rigorous processes that we need to back up the science, but it's about that. So that's kind of what I like to say with that kind of stuff. I suppose with the biofouling stuff, that's the bit that I really like. I'll go and just give a little, you've opened up the world that I could talk about barnacles. So barnacles, which are my absolute favorite creature ever, they have a really cool way of kind of settling. So they have preferences for the best place to settle, which makes sense, because if you are going to live in the same spot for the rest of your life, you have to pick well. And so once
You don't want to have really bad neighbours just like, oh no, I'm stuck here for the rest of my life and it's that annoying one over there.
yeah,
And I can't just move to the next rock.
exactly. And you're like, oh, I'm just so crowded. Like, oh, just yeah. I mean, I do often think that I'm often looking at barnacles on the rocky shore, wondering if those neighbours are friendly or not, or they're just having some sort of neighbourhood rivalry. Especially when they start to get squished in, you can see them be like,
Mm,
are they enjoying the hug, or are they just like annoyed that they've got 2 extra neighbours and they didn't have room for them?
yeah.
Which is really cool. So barnacles, once they kind of reproduce, they spawn into the water, which is how they help move, because otherwise they're going nowhere, the young. And they turn into these tiny cute little larvae. I mean, cute in my eyes. And they go through lots of stages of metamorphosis, like a caterpillar into a butterfly is that typical example. And I think they go through 6 or 7 rounds, and they get to the last round, which is called a cypriot, and this can't eat. So the other ones
Okay.
can eat because they need to go far and they see how far they can get, changes different species, but this doesn't. And so its whole job is to use its little feelers to go on different materials and see if it wants to settle there or not. And to land, it creates a glue that is like a post-it note level glue. It's not very sticky, but it's enough to hold it on. And you can track them, like in experiments. People track these little barnacles going around, but then because they can't eat, they get more and more panicky. So you can see them just like going, oh no, should I sit here? Should I go here? And they keep going. And then in the end, they'll just have to settle because they've got a finite window. If they can't find anywhere, they get less and less choosy as it goes on, which I think is really quite funny to watch. But the glue that they then use to settle is one of the strongest glues known to man, made in the natural world or not. And it took us, I don't even think we've completely worked out how they do it, because it's underwater. We don't have the technology to work it out. We've got some of the way there, but it's confused scientists for years about how on earth the barnacles produce such an incredibly strong glue. And I just love that not only are they like really cool, but they're just also confusing engineers. What are you? How do you do this? And so yeah, I think that's just fascinating. And I always think anything where nature is just outsmarting humans. I mean, we've not been around that long. Barnacles have probably been evolving much longer. It's just like, well, I'm just going to confuse everyone.
Yeah, I quite like the idea of we're not the peak species, we're just an off branch of fish that happen to occur.
There you go. We're just
So with the post-it note glue level, is that kind of when it's like much younger, so it tests things out, and then like the super glue is when it's later on, this is my place, back off.
yeah, pretty much. But it doesn't, I can't remember it off my top of my head. It probably varies per species. But I would say with that's within like, they've got no more than like 48 hours to go from like post-it note level glue to, or once they've landed. So they basically, once they put a bit of post-it note level glue, they're, oh yeah, I would love to live here. They flip on their head. So, and then just they start that process where they make plates around them to protect themselves, which is why they look like little rock volcanoes. And that's where the glue is on the bottom of that. And then they feed with their legs. They stick their legs up in the air and they grab lots of food out of the air while they're basically doing like an upside down cycle with their kind of legs. Yeah.
They're doing like Cirque du Soleil, just like on their heads, just like.
Yeah, absolutely. I did a science show last year, and I cut feather boas into put them on the back of my legs, and in front of all these school kids, turn myself into a barnacle by basically doing this like yoga pose, like cycling through the air with a big barnacle cardboard cut out next to me. So just to show them how ridiculous it seems that a barnacle lands on their head and decides to to do that.
That's amazing. I definitely did not know that. That's brilliant.
That's it. I'm going on every podcast, every YouTube video. I'm just trying to lure people into like barnacles. By the end, give me 2 years and we'll have a barnacle fan club for sure.
Oh, definitely. You can sign me
Yeah.
up for that. We've talked about the role that you are in as a science communicator. As the main purpose of this podcast is to try and act as a guide for people who want to explore more than just academia and looking at different roles that use science and the people that have them. Are there any internships, kind of training courses, and volunteer work or previous roles? I'm aware that's a lot of different things, so we can go through them one at a time, that you feel helped you to get your current role?
Yeah. So especially with science communication, I didn't even know it was a thing really for a while. Just something I fell into because I enjoyed it. There's a lot more around now, which is really good. And also science communication is such a broad thing across the spectrum of different, it's whatever your interests could be. I mean, I don't even go into the realm of musical kind of Scicommer and using all like that kind of things as well. So I did Famelab, which is a public speaking competition, which disappeared for a bit, but I think is coming
Yeah, I
back
think
now
it's
this
coming
year,
back,
which
yeah.
is really exciting. Yeah. Which is a 3-minute talk where you share about your science. Not only is that a great way to kind of distill what you're doing and learn that, but it's one of the hardest, any 3-minute talking thing. It's one of the hardest things you can do because, as you know, you can tell I like to talk a lot, and putting everything into 3 minutes is such a tough thing. But those kind of training things, I've met friends. We're still in the same kind of like the people I did it with that year. We still have a chat together, which is really nice. We got great training from different science communicators for free to kind of go and do that. I went through the competition to get to the UK final, so I did get more and more kind of training as it went on, which was incredible. Like, it was amazing. And I would recommend to everyone to go for it and do it. But at every stage I had a really good time, and that really just helped me learn lots of that kind of stuff. Right now I'm in a mentorship scheme for science writing as well, run by Roma and Hannah Ayoub.
Yeah.
It's like a science writing thing, looking to get underrepresented people into science writing more. I've got to speak to like incredible book writers, incredible journalists, all of this amazing stuff because I kind of applied for that kind of role. So I would recommend to everyone, like, whatever you're doing, whatever your interests are, try and find something similar to that and go onto whether a competition or a training thing, for me, it's been great about meeting people, but you just learn so many separate skills that I would have never have learned had I stuck in academia. Like, that level of public speaking is incredible for academics, but not needed. It's still at the phase where you talk on a PowerPoint, and you don't need to use all these tips and tricks for public speaking. And science writing for papers is completely different to science writing of capturing an audience. So stuff like that I found kind of really, really fun. I've done Bright Club. I didn't do Bright Club because it was the week of lockdown. I was supposed to do Bright Club, but I did the training for Bright Club, and then I've done stand-up comedy for science at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival since.
That's amazing.
And that was just because I was like, oh, this is a really good resource for academics that want to do something different. And so I don't know, I would just say get onto as much as you can and do as much as you can. Obviously there's, everyone has different limits of what they have and time that they have outside of usual work or outside that. So but if you can make time for it, I've just found all of those experiences to be wonderful, and I've made great friends and great contacts and built my confidence up. So I couldn't recommend any of those more.
The mentorship team sounds like a really, really cool idea with getting into it. I think the main reason I wanted to include about the kind of different training courses and internships is because people in the industry that have gone through it, like Famelab, and then there's a 3-minute thesis thing that exists as well.
Yeah, done that one too, collected that.
And then I think there's kind of other different kind of competitions that you go through and you can get kind of free training through it, and it makes it, there's a lot of stuff that can make getting into that science communication as a career a lot more accessible, but it's having the knowing people to be able to then know about them to get into it, I think which is one of the main things that I'm trying to do here, is share the resources, and you don't have to be on this very niche area of Twitter. This is it going word of mouth to you listeners, and hopefully you will find this helpful if you're just thinking about science communication, or maybe you're in like high school, sixth form, just starting your undergraduate, or you might not be in education anymore, but you want to kind of try and get into it. Try and look and search for those things. I think Mailing lists, things are still very much on mailing lists at the moment, I feel. I know I'm on a lot of mailing lists, but also there's a lot of social media groups kind of putting feelers out there and searching and feeling comfortable enough to talk to people, I think is very, very useful. People are very, very helpful with their time, and the worst they can do generally is say no, I feel, is what I've generally found. Is that what you found?
No, absolutely. I always encourage people to always
Yeah.
ask, and especially with any of like the kind of like a lot of, especially like the competition-y kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
Famelab also have Famelab Academy, which I've been a mentor for, and that runs during school. So it's young kids that do that kind of stuff, but they have teams behind them. So Famelab is a worldwide thing. They have a team behind them helping Famelab run, and same with 3-minute thesis. We'll have people in different universities and stuff, but that's part of their job, is to help support people. And if you can kind of find their email through that, or find them on social media, or people that have done those competitions, and kind of reach out and ask, everyone most of the time is usually like super supportive. So reach out to people wherever you can, especially the organizations. They've got teams of people there to help you. Also, as well, like do stuff yourself, like not without that support and getting onto all those things. But I found it to be really fun and creative, making my own YouTube videos and making different social media posts and all those things, and you learn a lot through that. And it means that when you can reach out to people as well, you can be like, oh, look at this stuff, or people will reach out to you. It's I would say a mix of both, of go reach out, get as much advice as you can, but also just don't be afraid to jump in and do what you think is best for you. Make the stuff that you want to make, have fun, tell the world what you want to do, make that piece of art or make that piece of music and all that kind of stuff. Just go for it. You don't have to kind of wait for people to say, welcome to science communication, you must have a certain amount of experience before you do that. You just start and kind of work your way and doing what you want. So that's kind of my advice.
I definitely agree with that. I also feel that there's very much a thing with, it's slightly changing now, I feel, but there's a lot of, you've got to have some volunteering and trying to get into it before you get a paid job. Or at least that's what I'm finding. But I think like developing your own style with it, or working on, okay, I'll make this video, I'll write this, it helps you, practice makes perfect, as they say, and developing stuff and then having stuff out there means that people can then find you. And then I think with when they were making Bang Goes the Theory, how they looked for presenters is they went on YouTube and found people making science videos, and that's how they found their presenters for an amazing BBC show.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is unfortunate in that, I mean, I've done years of free stuff before this, but I do this, the benefit of that in my eyes is I do the stuff that I find incredibly fun, and the videos that I make are exactly how I want to make them, and I get to practice and learn all these things. I wouldn't have learned anything to do with editing had I not gone out and done that. I mean, I now offer training in this. A bit of a plug there, but there wasn't those kind of courses around that says, how do you make a science video, how do you share during that? It was me go on YouTube in the evenings and making all that kind of stuff. So I definitely think people should be compensated for their time, especially if you're going to events and things. But I can't lie and say that I've done a lot of free stuff. I've done a lot of free science shows and that, but I was in a PhD program at the same time, so I was kind of using it as that. But yeah, just if you are doing stuff for yourself, just have fun and do exactly what you want, and use that as just such an indulgent excuse to do what you want, and learn those skills. And yeah, use that as a way to then boost yourself for future. And for me, it has worked in that I've had some incredible opportunities from what I've done in my own time, kind of for free, and I wouldn't take that back because those opportunities have been kind of incredible.
So carrying on kind of with the theme of this, if you could do it again, are there any internships, training courses, kind of volunteer work or previous roles that you would do now that you maybe didn't do at the time?
Yeah, so I've done a lot. So I will say that I kind of tried and did everything that I kind of had time to do as I went. The one thing that is probably a more marine biology, natural science specific thing is maybe the opportunities. I went straight from I did my undergrad to my master's to my PhD, and realized that I really like roles of, I love going rock pooling and I love sharing science, and I'd love to go and do a bit more traveling or go else places and all that kind of stuff. And at the time, especially in marine biology, it is unbelievably there's so many internships and stuff that you have to pay to go. I never recommend that. I don't regret not going and doing one of those like pay for training as you go things. But there is a cool time where I think maybe it would have been really nice to go and work at like a field centre or work at like for a national trust or something. And I'm now excited to try and get into that a bit more from like the freelance post-academic version, but there's loads and loads and loads and loads of roles at that kind of undergraduate level where you can go and I'm not saying that people shouldn't do that later on in their career field, but it would have been a great experience to do maybe for a year between my undergrad and my master's. And I don't regret not doing that. I really like the direction that I went in, but having looked back at like seeing like incredible roles where you could spend the year, you know, on Scicommer Island full of puffins and help volunteer there or get paid to spend your time there for the summer months, or go and work for the National Trust and spend the year sharing how awesome rock pools are as a job. Just stuff like that I didn't really know existed as a job until I'm now looking at jobs way later in my career thinking, oh, that would have been cool. That would have been cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's kind of my don't think that you have to go straight into masters or postgraduate stuff. If there are jobs like that out there that interest you, then that would be a great time to kind of go explore that.
Yeah, I definitely think foundations and like companies that people don't necessarily know about, for instance, the companies that you worked for, the Marines, kind of marine life.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think also just with different festivals, like science festivals that are available as well, I think are great opportunities. I know there's Cheltenham, which lots of people go to and kind of volunteering at, and you get training with that as well, I believe. I didn't quite realize how many science festivals and different organizations there are that they will do internship, looking at kind of helping out during there for a month, a summer, during like the Christmas period. If you're at uni, you've got a month off. Go explore, have a look, see if you can help out and learn something.
Yep.
Yeah.
And similarly, which I mean you can get into at any kind of career stage, but like wildlife film kind of stuff, internships for film things as well, that they kind of exist and come up, especially so looking into just kind of all that. Science festivals are great. People like there's the Rockpool project, which is down in Plymouth area. They have like a specific beach and place, but there's probably tons of that around, and just looking at those and seeing what you can kind of do and see if you can get internships there would just be a really fun thing to do, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, and help kind of direct which way you want to go. I think you learn a lot whether you love it or you don't love it. It really helps in kind of shaping which direction you go in.
The next question follows on from what we've been talking about the internships and volunteering, but kind of more on the connecting to people, which we've touched upon a little bit of. Are there any networking events, mailing lists, groups, guilds or associations that you feel are particularly helpful in getting into? I know personally I find the Big Interactive Group, the UK Science Communication Network, has been really, really helpful, but are there any that you find personally really, really helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my last job at MASTS was a network and development officer. So networking for me is, I mean, I love it. I really, really enjoy getting to meet people. So I will plug where I used to work first, because it's probably the easiest place to do. So MAST, which is the Marine Alliance of Science and Technology for Scotland, especially if you're at a Scottish institute, you're probably a member already. But even if you're not, you can still sign up to their mailing list. And every week they send around loads of jobs and opportunities. And there's the team there that you can kind of get in contact with if anything's coming up and reaching out, which is really good. Same with, I ran the Sustainable Management of Marine Resources Network. I ran like the kind of net version of that. So putting on training. And I also started this thing called Ocean Partnerships, which every month someone comes in with an idea, but it's speed networking. You get to meet a load of different researchers in marine science. Anyone interested in the ocean can join this kind of thing. So there's artists and scientists and people in policy and all these different things from across the kind of career spectrum go to this. As a couple of hundred people joined on to the network as we're filming this kind of thing. So I think those kind of resources are really good. They're UK kind of resources, if not a bit more Scottish focused, because I'm up in Scotland. I found conferences. If you go to a conference, if you can try and go to them, I love a conference. It's a really good way to meet people. The key thing about a conference is the networking. It's especially in this, it's been hard the last couple of years to kind of meet people. At any conferences you can kind of get to, I mean, that depends on your career stage and depends on grants you get to go to conferences, but they're often grants for people to go. And so if you're interested in going, have a look at kind of funding opportunities to kind of get there. The Global Science Show, which is something that Sam Langford runs, whether
Mhm.
you look out for new events or scroll back, I mean, there were absolutely tons during the lockdowns. Have a look at all the scientists that were on there. There's hundreds of scientists that put forward what they were doing in their careers, what their science was up to, who they are, information about their career. And it gives you all their Twitter information. So again, it's a great way to reach out and connect with people. So stuff like that is kind of really, really handy and really useful, I found.
Yeah, definitely. I think for our younger listeners, those who are in high school and for like the college, sixth form, or not currently in education, I feel there's a group called STEM Ambassadors, which exists throughout the UK, Scotland, and Wales. I think Northern Ireland, I'm not sure. They train you up. There's different awards that you can do, and you go into schools and give talks. And I think that training can be really helpful because it is kind of a mentorship scheme, and you get to network through that because you're working with different people at different schools and they've got different events, and then you can also go to different things, I think, as well, which is really helpful for getting into that stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Famelab Academy, if they might do that at your school, or you can kind of have a look at different things with that. And also your like local museums, if you've got them, they might do events where scientists go and do talks, and specifically for kind of like school age children and that kind of stuff. So have a look at wherever your local spot is, if you can kind of get to anywhere like that. It might be really useful too.
Are there any graduate jobs that now exist in the industry that you feel would benefit someone trying to get into science communication? So where you're currently as a freelance science communicator, and we kind of touched upon different areas of university, or obviously we talked about kind of academia, but are there any kind of jobs like straight out of uni or potentially straight out of sixth form, college, or even high school that you think this would be a really good stepping stone and give a good foundation for someone to be able to then go, okay, I've got these foundational skills, I can then go and take a next step into kind of science communication?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't actually ever done like worked for a science centre or done any kind of science education like official in roles other than my role kind of MASTS and that. But getting into things like this, science centres have kind of roles that you can go for. Museums, things like that would be really good. And also places like coastal centres and national trusts, and they have people who are there to help with. There's a Scottish Seabird Centre is a good example for up near Scotland, and they have roles there to help people talk about that and lots of different things. There's a Lobster hatchery just down from that always kind of advertises a summer role. You can go work there for the summer, like sharing about that, because people are more likely to be at the beach in summer and things like that. So just looking at roles like that would be really, really fun to try and get into. There's also engagement teams. There's engagement roles at every university and kind of every museum, and big companies as well, or small companies and different companies. So have a look at for like public engagement roles that their job is people that need to do social media, they need to make good videos, they need to share that kind of stuff. All of that is going to be great experience, and you're going to meet so many people being involved in that. And I mean, a lot of people probably have experience, especially using social media already and knowing what works. And if you can demonstrate that you know how to kind of do that, it's really useful. And those roles are really valuable, especially in science when a lot of the time everyone is very tight for time anyway, because everyone's busy and everyone's competing for funding, and it's all like you've got to make the most of that time. And part of my role at MASTS was supporting scientists and helping them do that kind of stuff. So those public engagement roles exist because they know that not all the time scientists are going to be able to do what I do and go home in the evening and make my YouTube content. You can be there to do it. So, and that kind of ranges from a load of different roles. You could do that pre-undergrad, post-undergraduate. You could do that later on, depending on kind of where you're working on and what you need to do. It's just sometimes a bit difficult to find out. So Google vacancies at specific places you might want to work, or just drop them an email and see if that kind of role exists and see what happens. Everyone's probably massively looking for people to help support them with engagement. So don't be afraid to try and go for it.
Definitely. I think there's been very much a kind of push for content creators currently. Also, kind of some resources that I've personally used is there is a Science Centre page which has all of the science centres that are listed in the UK and Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. So that's really, really helpful. There's the big chat, which is about the Science Communication Network. Hi everyone,
There's Future Caelum just coming in to add some more information. So you've got the NCCPE, which is the National Coordinating Centre for Public Engagement. They have a mailing list and Twitter. And you've got the Scicommer mailing list and the Scicom, PSCI-COM mailing list. All of them are great resources. Right, now back to the episode.
The Scicommer mailing list is a good one. I should have mentioned that earlier. That's really
With
good.
the Scottish Seabird Centre, generally looking for visitor experience assistants, which is a really, really cool role, which I'd recommend going for if that's something kind of you're interested in. Even if it's not just about the marine life, it's very, very good to getting experience with customers and making sure that you're happy to be talking to people all day long, or you may want communication role that's slightly less public facing directly, but like digital communications is becoming a massive, massive thing. So that may be more kind of your area.
Yeah. Oh, and if you're a mariney, look for sea safaris, and there's some great roles, which I mean I'd love to do it just for a summer anyway, where you spend your summer going out on boats and telling people about sea life and things like that. So I would have a look for that if you're marine focused and like to be outside. Yeah, I might just go for one of them one summer just to have fun.
Look forward to seeing all the fun photos from it.
Yeah.
Now to a slightly more fun part of the interview. What is the most fun you've had at work so far?
Yeah. I'll have to go back slightly, given that this is my third day starting freelance. I'll go back to me doing science communication throughout my thing. I think that, I mean, this is an opportunity I just felt unbelievably lucky to do, which was really fun. But I got to go down to it was I should know where it was, but it's like Exeter and further, and I'm up in Scotland. Like it was far,
like Torquay or somewhere like that.
Yeah, or even further. It was just like the very close to the bottom corner of the UK, and I was asked there by someone doing a film for the National TV and Film School. And it was me and these other incredible, Kaya Bint Savage was the director, and these other two amazing women doing fantastic film and sound. And it was just kind of like the four of us in this house down there for a couple of days looking for nudibranchs, which are sea slugs, these tiny, no bigger than a fingernail most of the time.
Oh, I love sea slugs.
Yeah, they're so good. They're like, and they're tiny, and we had some people from I think it was Exeter Uni, it's like photography course, come down and help take pictures and video, and I kind of just got to spend that was my like dream. I felt like in that time I had like the idea of going somewhere, staying in a house for a couple of days, searching for one of my favorite sea creatures, telling the camera about that, and seeing how people got directed, and we all became very fast friends on that trip. And so I got to see how, you know, the cameras kind of worked and how people did audio and all that kind of stuff. So for me, it was just like a dream come true kind of a trip. So that was probably like the most fun day I have. I'll preface that with that's, you know, a rare thing in the span of what I do, but I just felt and then I got to go to the British Film Institute in London for their like showcase of it, and go to this amazing cinema screening of all these things, and got to see these amazing documentaries with incredible people in the room, and got to network with like all these amazing studio people afterwards. It was just such a good experience, and I can't believe I did that. But they found me through my YouTube because I shouted about how amazing nudibranchs were, just for fun anyway.
See, if you put yourself out there, you can get opportunities like this. If you don't put yourself out there, how are you going to know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So highly, again, sharing what's fun, and other people will find it fun, and like nudibranchs don't get enough attention, so I just loved that I could shine a bit of a light on them too.
So this may be the same day, but the next question is, what does your ideal day look like as a science communicator?
I'll go with a more realistic day. I'd love that at low tide I would always be rock pooling. So I mean that's not always possible, but if it's an ideal day, you'll be like, right, we're not going to email Elizabeth because we know it's low tide. We've checked the tide time. She's at the beach. So ideally I would be there, and I'd be doing a bit of filming and that. And it would kind of involve coming back and getting to kind of like look at all the filming and stuff, but you know, doing stuff like this, having a meeting with someone or getting to meet someone new, or doing a new kind of chat or podcast would be great in that day. Getting to read a bit of a science book and work my way through that, which is really good. I'm really into kind of storytelling for science at the moment, so I'm reading a lot of that kind of bits. It's a very varied day. I'd love to be able to then go and do a bit of of art in the evening on a stream or something, some sort of varied form. The reason I like going freelance and it's the freedom to do and tell and share science how I kind of want to do that. And I have a million ideas at once all the time, and I just love that I could flip between all of them and kind of fit that all into one day and class that as work. So my ideal day is probably doing lots of random things, all sea themed. I'm doing so.
Awesome. Well, the last question I have, which I'm very interested in, is what is something from your past that you unexpectedly use in your current role?
Well, you mentioned D&D earlier. Let's tie it into a bit of like fantasy. Let's roll back to that. I loved as a kid all of those books about like wizards and fantasy, but like what you would do to become this like type of wizard. When you'd read this guide to becoming a wizard, you would read, you would go into the field and look for footprints for this, and then you'd go back and you'd do this, and it seems really silly that I would then link that to science and science communication, but I just really loved the idea that as this like guide to fantasy wizard things, that you could pick what you wanted to do and you could go and do this and you could be a wizard of this and you could go and see these fantasy creatures, and it feels very similar to what I'm doing now. It's like what's my guide to being a science communicator? I'm going to go out in the field and say hello to some barnacles, and I'm going to come back and write about it. And it's an odd thing to kind of link between, but I don't know, it's that curiosity and creativity and imagination that has featured not just as a kid during my kind of fantasy dragon-filled bookshelves, and has just continued on, but in different ways, with creativity and imagination, with sea life and what I can come up with next. And then it just happens that I can also play D&D at the same time, which is Dungeons and Dragons, which really completes the circuit very much back to the full-on fantasy stuff. Although there's Science and Sorcery, which Sam Langford has done, we've both been part of it, where it is mixing that science and fantasy together. So really, we've come full circle.
We've come full circle. Yeah, there's Science and Sorcery I know of. There's the RPGEEKS I know, who at the end of their streams they talk about some part of science related to it. There's a lot of including role playing and like science in things and making it really accessible for people, which I really, really love as well. And it's a lot of bringing up stuff that like people just love playing make-believe when they were younger, but now that we can use that and then also teach people about science, which I find really, really cool.
Exactly. That is what I love. And it's that, it's just one of the things I love about science is that everyone picks a weird bit. This is kind of what I meant earlier on about people not thinking that people and creativity is that important, but there's so much to learn in science that everyone has their weird niche that they love. I mean, I'm talking about sea slugs and barnacles. That's not, that's not mainstream. Everyone loves sea slugs and barnacles, but like my career is focused on that bizarre niche of things, and it's the same with everyone liking, it's whatever your passion is. If your passion is geeking out with Dungeons and Dragons and sharing that, it works so well because you can just put two passions together. So if you can find what you enjoy, not only in science but out of science, and combine them, it just makes it extra incredible, which is kind of what I just feel like I'm doing as my job now. So that's kind of what I'm excited to do.
Yeah, there's so many different areas of science and some different jobs that use science that you might not think to, which is the point of this podcast, showing people what the jobs that use science that they might not think. Kind of marine biologists thinking about the different types of cement and then how using that on like sea defenses will then stop different animals and like marine life from attaching to it. I'd never have thought of that before, but that's a really cool area that uses the different side, like the different composites they use in the cement. Like I'm gonna have to try and we might end up having a conversation about that as like an extra thing, but engineers kind of, obviously it uses maths a lot, but people don't necessarily think, there's lots of science related to this with in terms of the components or how a pavement works. The thinking about what you need, the science of making sure that the world around us, there's science in everything, and it's just working out what it is and how it's done, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the world of engineering, I didn't even think about it. And marine biology and engineering is so different. I always say it's like wetsuits and actual suits, like they're very different. And having to see kind of the other way and be like, there's different types of metal. Like it's not just like steel and stainless steel. There's like more. was really shocking to me. But that's what I like about the flexibility behind science, is that you can find out this cool fact and go down a rabbit hole, which then turned into a PhD for me. Like it was a very big long rabbit hole of investigation. But which is great, which is why, stuff like this podcast is so good and good to know, because I just encourage anyone to kind of follow what their passion is and just find ways to do that. And there's space for that to happen, even if it doesn't immediately say so. And my usual one with that is they let a marine biologist do a master's in materials engineering and then a PhD in civil engineering. If a marine biology, if I can do that, then anyone can kind of jump between anything, because they're very different.
Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of get worried that they've got to go down one path and then they're stuck there, but you can very much pick and choose, and like there's a winding path, and you'll discover things such as the cement that's a cool thing. Let's go and discover that, which you might not have known before.
Yeah. Which is one of the benefits of kind of going down the science route, is it's so broad and so varied, and it's important. There's still lots we don't know. Like I mean, that's why I went and did the PhD in that, because there was a gap that, that's the point of doing a PhD, is you're trying to find an answer to something that we didn't know that was there. So but that's science at a PhD level. I will say that, like, you can do that on a various amount of scales across anything to do with science, whether you're still at school to you're being a professor. Like, it's all the same to me, is you are asking questions, trying to find the answer, and using your creative brain that's unique to you to do that, which I just find absolutely fascinating and
definitely
and really exciting.
Wonderful. Well, it has been absolutely wonderful chatting to you. I hope you've enjoyed this chat. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it too. Thank you so much for having me on. I have had a blast.
Wonderful. Well, we may potentially have you on in the future to talk about cement and that, because I find that really, really interesting, and I think if I find it interesting, other people might as well. So we might have that as a fun additional segment at some time in the future. But I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me at marinemumbles.com, which has my website and links to things. But I'm Marine Mumbles across the things. Social media, on YouTube, Marine Mumbles. I think I've got over 250 videos on there of just full of sea life things. So if you're interested in sea life, please go check that out. And on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of the things. But if in doubt, my website.
And are you happy for people to message you if they've got any questions about science communication or different things that, obviously you've gone to marine biology, civil engineering, kind of asking questions? Is that something you're happy to be contacted about?
Yeah. Drop me a line on social medias, and I'm hovering about.
Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I certainly enjoyed making it. If you've got any questions, feedback, or recommendations for who you'd like us to talk to, you can send them to our email, themanyfacesofscience@gmail.com. Or you can contact us via our socials on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. See you next time.